The moment you stepped foot off that plane, you inherited a land of centuries of sacrifices, of tears, of dreams, and of yearning.
You're not running away from something, you're running to something. You're running to the homeland, you're running to come home.
That's what it used to sound like when plane loads of new immigrants would touch down at the Ben Gurion airport in Israel to begin their new lives as Israeli citizens. This past year, 45,000 Jewish people made Aliyah and immigrated to Israel. But since the Hamas attack of October 7th, immigration's been down sharply as the country's in the middle of a war now. And so it's likely the whole big welcoming ceremony with dignitaries and flags likely won't happen on Wednesday when prominent Toronto Jewish community member Irving Matlow lands and becomes an official Israeli citizen. Although they probably should make a fuss because Irving Matlow is 96 years old. He's fulfilling a dream he's had since 1948, when he left Canada at the age of 21 to help defend the new State of Israel as a volunteer soldier serving with the IDF during the country's War of Independence. That was 75 years ago. Matlow's long retired, and he visits Israel every winter to see his daughter and grandkids who live there. He was supposed to make Aliyah 3 months ago, but the war interrupted the trip until his kids felt things were safer.
I don't want to make a big simus, as they said, out of going. I'm doing it for myself. If it'll be an example for others, fine and dandy. But it's something that I felt in the last maybe year that it's a last step, maybe, of identifying with something that you've identified all your whole life with.
I'm Ellen Besner, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Tuesday, January the 2nd, 2024. Welcome to the CJN Daily, a podcast of the Canadian Jewish News, sponsored by Metropia. Well, it is the first CJN Daily podcast of the new calendar year, and it marks the start of a new chapter in Irving Matlow's life, just like it does for hundreds of other North Americans who've gone ahead and moved to Israel in the last few weeks, despite the ongoing war, or maybe actually because of it. Matlow's son David Matlow went with him to make sure the flight Tuesday night went smoothly and to get his father set up in the family's Jerusalem apartment. We'll speak with the Matlows coming up. Plus, you'll meet a slightly younger Canadian who's just immigrated, 27-year-old Montreal schoolteacher Laurence Ita, and the Appel family, Moshe and Leah, and 2 of their 3 kids. You'll remember them because the Appels used to run the only kosher bakery on Vancouver Island. First, we'll talk to Irving Matlow. It was just before he left Toronto. He joined me with his son David Matlow, who's the CJN's popular treasure trove contributor and Herzl expert. So welcome to the CJN Daily. It's an honor to see you again as we're talking, as you're getting ready to make your trip to Israel, long delayed because of the war.
Yes, well, that's a short delay. Maybe delayed for 90 years, or not 90. From when I was first in Israel in 48, so that's 75 years. I always maybe wanted to go back because my parents moved from Canada to Israel in 1955. My grandfather and grandmother are buried there. My parents are buried there. So I have our home was maybe basically concerned with Israel and Jewish nationhood and Jewish independence and Hebrew. So, but your life takes you in a different direction for a while. But I figured, I'm getting a little older. So if I don't get, just for my own satisfaction, just to feel that I'm much more closely identified with the Jewish state, which was so very important in my family, I would have missed out on something. I always wanted to have a place there. We were in Israel for the whole family was there in 1970 for a whole year. I thought maybe we would move then, but things happened, and then the kids get married, and you have children and grandchildren, and so we did the best we could by having a place for 40 years and spending five months of the winter in the last few years there till my wife passed away. So that, the attachment to the state of Israel and what it stands for. From a Jewish point of view, we're national Jews with the religion is important, but it's not my essential relationship to being Jewish, But history and the language. So this is like for some satisfaction to really link up with the whole idea of to use the term Herzlian kind of an outlook on what the Jewish future would be. But it's unfortunate to see that the beauty that one could have enjoyed in Israel has been replaced since October the 7th with a very tough situation and a tragic situation. I sometimes wonder if one could use the term that the person from South Africa wrote that book, Cry, My Beloved Country, that one. It hurts to see so many people suffer, not only the Jewish people, but that innocent people.
Tell us a bit about who in Israel is so your daughter is there, son-in-law, grandchildren, how many?
4 granddaughters. One of them is married and she's got 2 little boys.
Did your family try to talk you out of making Aliyah?
It's much more of a spiritual and just maybe an official, because I've been spending 6 months pretty well in Israel anyways. And that's the only condition. Okay, there may be certain benefits, maybe the health, but by the time that comes through, I have my own health policy. I'm very fortunate that I don't need the help of the government, but it's much more a sense of spiritual or personal satisfaction, that final link, to the whole idea of a Jewish homeland, a Jewish state, is to be a citizen. I think maybe they should open up anybody who would be a citizen. You could be a dual citizen just to have that sense that you're tied to the state in a little more than just as a visitor.
Right, so that's what I want to ask you. What is your life going to look like? Is it going to be the same, like you're going to spend 5-6 months there and come back to Toronto, or are you packing up your house here in Canada?
No. Look, to be truthful, I can't really make plans. At 96, it's hard to make plans for the future. I was supposed to leave with David in October, so I would spend 5-6 months. But now we're going in January and going through New York. We thought we would get on here and Air Canada take us like mentioned right in business class. So it's a trek to go via New York. But I have to thank my children. I have to thank David in particular, because coming with me, because I could never manage it myself. So I don't know how my health could be there. I don't know what the situation will be there. If anything, if it gets worse, maybe Jerusalem could be under attack from the Hezbollah. Supposedly have rockets that can reach Jerusalem. So what do I say? Yom, you take day by day, hour by hour, and hopefully things will be all right.
And you have a one-way ticket, or you have a return ticket?
I have a return ticket for April the 9th.
For Pesach.
Yeah, for Pesach, yeah.
So what do you get when you get to, you get on the plane, you get to Ben Gurion? What actually happens? Do we know what the procedure is?
Well, now that's all left in the hands of very, very capable young man, I'll call him.
Bring him on. David, come over. So tell me what the procedure is for how this works.
From what I understand, so we've been dealing with Nefesh B'Nefesh and the Jewish Agency, who have been fantastic to accommodate my dad's dream to be an Israeli citizen. We arrive because we're coming from Newark at 6:45 in the morning in Tel Aviv, and I understand there'll be a person with a sign for my dad, for new immigrants, directing him to to a section of the I guess arrival hall where his Aliyah visa will be processed. So there is an Aliyah stamp, and it gets actualized. The official designation as an Israeli citizen will happen on arrival in the airport when they stamp his passport.
Do they do something like, I don't know, party, champagne? What happens?
I hope not.
No, there's nothing planned. My father specifically said there should be no hoopla. There are lots of other important things going on in Israel, like the defense of the country, so not to distract people from their important tasks. The Jewish agency was very accommodating. They understand this is a very special case. He was ready to go on October 10th. He essentially said, if it will show Israelis were not afraid, I'm going. But we were afraid. And so we negotiated to put it off until January 2nd.
So you're just hang on a second. So you're going with him. You always go anyway, usually. But do you not normally travel with him every year? This is something different, or you always go with him?
Well, there's a whole file of things. You have to bring a certified copy of your birth certificate and your wedding certificate and a letter from Rabbi Wernick that confirms that my dad is Jewish, and 3 Israeli-sized passport pictures. There are some mechanics to look after on arrival. It's very well organized.
No, a lot of immigrants, they have to learn how to speak Hebrew. They have to go to Ulpan. How does that work for you?
Oh, my Hebrew is a Hebrew of 60 years ago. And it's very difficult for me to understand, but from a reading point of view, except for the odd word, I'm quite competent in reading, and I can manage. I hope it will be. I don't know what it'll be. Worse conditions, better conditions, whether it be peaceful in the offing. But look, that's Israel. That's Jewish life, I think, and we're maybe born into it. I have to take it, the good and the bad.
For their part, Moshe Appel and his wife Leah and their 2 kids are already set up nicely in their new Baka apartment. It's a suburb of Jerusalem. They arrived on December 11th after spending a few months in Montreal with family, and before that running the My Way Bakery in Victoria, BC, where Leah's chalnut pastries became everyone's favorite dessert last year. And we spoke just before they left Canada. Leah and Moshe Appel, and who else was with you?
Raya and Avram.
And you guys have been living in Victoria for quite some time, because we caught up with you last year when you were in the middle of making...
We did, your last story on us was the history of the Halnut.
And you're like days away from hopping on a plane.
Yes.
You know, most people would say Israelis should come and move to North America because it's not safe. But you are North Americans moving to Israel.
For those who wonder, because a lot of people ask us, it took 8 months to complete all our Aliyah paperwork. Our file was a bit more complicated because we have children, but you know, a lot of people will tell you it's about a year or so. For anybody who's interested in making Aliyah, a lot of people ask us that question.
But the timing between now and then, like, were you supposed to leave sooner and then there was issues that delayed you, or is that the date always that you were supposed to go?
We had tried to leave sooner. So when we applied for Aliyah, we said as soon as possible. And this ended up being as soon as possible.
Yeah.
How many suitcases are you allowed?
2 each. So we're allowed 100 pounds of luggage each. We're hoping to do less because, as I said, we're going to New York for a few days before because we're leaving from JFK. So we figured we would check out, 770 and
Crown Heights.
Crown Heights.
Wow. So have you never been to there before, the Ohel or the Eastern Park? Never.
No. We want to
that's actually a very important step for you guys to do that. That's very meaningful, I imagine.
Well, our journey, if you want to consider it that, as we spoke about last time, has sort of been both a journey in our professional life and in our social life and our relationship, as well as a journey in our Judaism. And we were sort of brought back into the fold by Chabad because of their outreach. And
not only that, I mean, on the island, it was hard to be Jewish. I'm not going to lie. It was hard. It was impossible to keep kosher properly. It was hard to find the clothes. And today we actually had a meeting with one of the Olim advisors as to which school we're going to register them in Jerusalem.
I was going to say that. Yeah. Where are you going to be? Where are you staying?
It's a little bit of a suburb of Jerusalem.
So the Baka region Baca was one of the regions that were under Israeli control before 1967. So it's very much, it's got the largest ulpan in Jerusalem. The majority of the people living there are religious, but there is a fair mix. 40% of the people that live there are under the age of 21. So it's got a lot of young families, a lot of Olim from English-speaking countries and French-speaking countries. Very fortunate to get in because when we initially wanted to move to Jerusalem, we had looked into the Baca Katamanian region, but we were told by people that live there that because it is so in demand, it could be fairly pricey. And a lot of apartments there do start around 12 to 14,000 shekels a month, which is reasonable for there. It's got significant Chabad support in Baca, which is really wonderful for us. And it really kind of shows Israel is very much about how who you know, because Baca is not a cheap area to find. But we have friends living in Jerusalem who are also through the Chabad, and they're like, we'll find you a place.
Avram, is there anything you're going to miss about moving from Canada to Israel?
Yes. Everybody here.
Who would that be?
It's not going to be coming immediately.
Have you been studying to speak Hebrew at all?
Yes. No, but I have found my favorite word in Hebrew.
What's your favorite word in Hebrew?
Cheese, but I like cheese. Like my
Gavina.
Yeah, I knew it was something right there.
Yeah, well, that's what I need to ask you. Okay, so in Victoria, you ran a bakery, kosher bakery. And did you guys close up and sell?
July, my mom got very, very sick, and we were already considering making Aliyah. We had hoped to build up the business a little bit more for a couple of months and then sell, but she got the cancer diagnosis and there was no one here to take care of her. So we sold for what we could get and we...
So is it still open? Other people running it?
No.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
There's a lot of things that I could say about that. I want us to remain as neutral as possible, but it's not an idea that will fly in Victoria. I wouldn't have asked anyone else to do it.
Are you going to do the same thing in Israel? Like, how are you going to make a living? What's your plans? Or do you know yet?
Likely not. Opening businesses is always an option.
So, Moshe, you're going to be doing what when you get there?
I hadn't even actually had the time to talk to you about it yet. But I'll be working at Muffin Boutique.
Oh, that's good.
And they want to meet you.
That's
They're
good.
big fans.
So yes, our Ole advisor put us in touch with two Montrealers who have a bakery and a catering business there.
And so you're not going to be doing like going to a kollel, studying to be a rabbi, things like that. You're going to stay in the business world a bit.
My life's journey, as you know, Ellen, has sort of been to try and find my own religious affiliation. I think that the more I get into it, the more I would like to pursue something even further. If it's feasible, I wouldn't be opposed to going into, rabbinical studies. I mean, I have the hat and the black jacket, so
Everyone sees the hat and they say, "Oh, Chabad."
Tell me about the fact that you guys are moving to Israel now. I know you could not have imagined that this would be the Israel you're moving to when you first made the Aliyah. How have you come to terms with that?
This is an interesting evolution. So as you know, we started Aliyah before the war. And when the war broke out, everybody looked at us and said, of course, naturally, you're going to stay in Montreal now, right? Like, this isn't going to be a thing anymore. And we looked at them and we said, no, like, it doesn't really change our plans. In fact, it kind of knocked down a couple of walls that were left for us because they're interested in having Ole, they're interested in having volunteers. I think it expedited things a bit. And also housing is becoming cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Because of everybody who's been drafted and everybody who's unfortunately passed and people who are moving back to North America.
But you're not going to have to serve. And of course, Moshe's not going to have to serve because of the age issues. But you'll be in a country that's traumatized. I wonder if that is weighing on you.
I have a lot of thoughts on this. The trauma is in us, especially Ashkenazi Jews after, everything that happened in Europe 90 years ago. It's in our neshama. We're born with it. So to say that Israel is a place of traumatized people, absolutely. But it's not because of today. It's not because of this. This is just another event in a long history of trauma. My second thought on this is that people are going, oh, it's not safe. Oh, it's not this. Oh, it's not that. Israel in its current incarnation is only about 80 to 90 years old. It's a young country. Considering how young it is, they've done amazingly well. but it's like the Wild West. Come to America 400 years ago, and you wouldn't say that it's the safest as it is now. You have to be a certain type of person to want to go to a developing area like that. You have to be a certain type of person who's not afraid of challenges and not afraid of work and not afraid of doing crazy things, let's be honest. But we're not the only ones who are feeling this way. North America is not necessarily very friendly to Jews right now.
You have a city councillor in Victoria who is blatantly anti-Semitic, and they're not doing anything about her.
Yeah, Councillor Kim. And that is symbolic, I think. Jews that do live in the Galus and in the exile, because we have been for
false sense of security
thousands of years at given a false sense of security, because we have to live amongst people that are not our own people, and for the most part it's sort of been a bit of a love-hate relationship.
Until October 7th, I was absolutely Canadian. Now I walk down the street and I'm a Jew, and I feel it.
I mean, it really depends on your upbringing. As you know, I went to a private Hebrew day school, so you could say that the persecution was baked into my psyche. Whereas other people that are in Montreal or that are in other parts of the world outside of Israel, it's not so for them, because they've lived amongst non-Jews, they've been friends with non-Jews, their children play with non-Jews. They're Jewish, but it's mostly just sort of incidentally. Whereas I experienced my first, anti-Semitic discrimination when I was in kindergarten, and I went to a school that would regularly get vandalized with swastikas and stuff. So that is kind of where it's always been for me. And unfortunately, when you live in exile, because when I was very little, my grandparents would say, "Why would we ever go to Israel? We have a thriving business in Montreal. We're doing well here. Whereas in Israel, you could get bombed tomorrow." And I think the mentality that Leah and I have, and that we sort of put in our kids, is that is actually a reason to go, not a reason to stay. Because when October 7th happened, and a lot of, our colleagues and acquaintances and friends were like, "This is terrible, this is horrible, I'm so glad we're safe." I said, no, we're not safe, because now all those people that we played with, that we were friends with, that we worked with, that were our coworkers, our neighbors, those are people that look at us. We're no longer just Moshe and Leah. We're now those Jews. And whether or not you want to hide it, I don't really want to live in a society where if things do happen, we are around people that don't really have any connection to us. If we're like, if terrorists were to attack the Cavendish Mall, or like they shot at the Yeshiva Gedolah on St. Kevin Street near Van Horn, and the city didn't really know what to do with it. At Concordia, there's now been 2 instances of serious anti-Semitic violence, and the school not only can't do anything about it, they don't really even want to. And that is the reality in Montreal, where if you are visibly Jewish, you're not safe.
No.
At all. One of the only kosher pizza places in Montreal, Pizza Pita. After October 7th, there's actually a guard that stands outside there now, because there has to be.
Well, you'll have that in Israel. You'll be used to it.
Well, and that's exactly the problem.
That doesn't make us feel threatened. That makes us feel safe. I know that a lot of people from North America, because they're not used to it, will feel threatened.
You have to carry your biometric ID card. You have to, let them search your bag before you go into the mall. You have the option sometimes of being stopped by the police or at a checkpoint if you want to go into certain areas. There's certain places in the West Bank that we're not even allowed to go in. Both for
safety reasons.
Like,
that's their
like I want to go to Hebron. I want to see the Machpelah, and I've been told by people that maybe don't.
Do you have family or relatives in Israel? Like, are you going cold with nobody there, just friends?
We have friends, and Moshe has some family there. We're basically the trailblazer. We are the ones who are landing there. Anyone else in our family who wants to come, that's.
We have people in our family who are saying, well, go and we'll follow you. see how it goes.
So there's only the two kids are going. The older child is staying in Canada, right?
She's actually still in BC, so she's not even here in Montreal.
We give Ali the option.
She's made her life. She's a manager, at her job, and she has a car. She gets herself around. Basically an adult, so it's her choice.
Yeah.
We wish you only the best, only good things. We'll keep in touch with you.
Thank you, Ellen.
Laurence Ita landed in Israel November the 29th. She was born in Canada to an Israeli mother and a Moroccan father. She worked as an English teacher in Montreal before she made Aliyah. Now she's in Netanya, where her two older sisters already live, and she hopes her parents will join them soon. Watching what's going on in Israel, of course, as everybody has been, and you're moving to Israel right in the middle of it. How have you been navigating that in your mind?
When it all broke out, it was the day before I was supposed to leave. So I was nervous for my family, not only I have my sisters, I have my cousins, I have my aunts and uncles there. So of course it was just scary. A lot of times people are telling me, "Oh, are you sure you want to go?" Or "How can you go there when there's war?" And I said, if I'm going to be living there for the rest of my life, like, how can I say, "Oh, I'm not going to go," because there's war, Then I don't deserve to be there. I don't deserve to be a citizen if I'm not going to be there when there's the hard times or when there's a war, because no matter what, if I'm going to be an Israeli citizen, right? So I'm going to be there regardless if there's war or no war. I told my mom, she's like, "Are you sure? Maybe you should wait a month more or an extra month." And I told her, "I'm sure, I'm ready. I want to be with my sisters. I feel safe when I'm there. I feel at home with everyone else." Now in Montreal, there's so much anti-Semitism, and I don't feel safe. I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel safe. When someone tells me, "Oh, like, what's your nationality? What's your religion?" I'm not going to ever hide it. But as soon as you say Jewish, you see it. You see it in their eyes. You see it, like, right away. They're judging you. There's discrimination right away. So I am ready to go to Israel. I'm ready to be with my people and, to feel comfortable, to not feel ashamed, or, like, I don't feel ashamed, but, like, it comes now with, like, there's a stigma now to you're Jewish, and it's like, oh, right away there's a comment or there's something, because everyone here now I feel it's a lot of racism and a lot of anti-Semitism. So,
which for Israelis is like mind-boggling that they can't really, they think that it's really bad here, and we're worried about what's happening in Israel, right?
Yeah, my sisters are like, "Oh my God, are you driving in Montreal? There's a riot." And I'm like, "You guys are going through bombings every hour and you're asking us if we're okay." Like, of course we're okay. But they're like, "It's crazy. It is crazy. At Concordia," like, I was grateful. I'm like, thank God I'm not at Concordia, because I wouldn't be able to go through that. Like, people in my face screaming at me. And so I don't want to fight about something like that, because I'm not for war, and I'm not for people losing lives. And I know people personally that have family in Gaza and they died, and it's extremely sad, and I'm on both ends. It's extremely sad, but now they don't want to talk to me because I'm Jewish. So
what do you mean by that? So you have Palestinian or friends that have relatives in Gaza that were killed in the war?
So it's my friend's friend, and when the war, right before I was supposed to move, I was there, and there were a lot of comments being thrown back to back, like, "You should be ashamed, you guys are killing people," and things like that. So it's always one-sided, they don't want to see it from both sides. So that's why I was thinking, I'm like, I'm glad I graduated, because I would have been going through that. And I have friends that were in school, and they were trying to navigate the way out of there, because it was like they were blocking the doors, they were blocking the path, they were screaming in their faces. Yeah. I've dealt with this, like, even I'm a teacher, and when there was like the war a few years ago, and I was working at a school, I experienced a lot of anti-Semitism, and they didn't even know I was Jewish, and it was crazy. So,
what kind of age group were you teaching at?
High school. Yes, English as a second language, and I taught elementary and high school. But the anti-Semitism was in high school, because they're older. A lot of Palestinian kids, a lot of Algerian and Lebanese kids. So they grew up, with a lot of hatred and a lot of. So for them, like, the Israel state does not exist. We read texts that would say Israel, and they would purposely say Palestine, or they would ignore the word. They would refuse to read the text. So I've experienced this, and these weren't texts that I chose. These were texts that were chosen by the school and that they would refuse to read. So this is every day. This is one thing that really led me to really want to go to Israel, because I don't like experiencing this, and it makes me really sad, honestly.
So what is it that you hope you'll do in Israel? Have you got any leads on what kind of career you would like to do?
My sisters and I have been discussing opening a business together because we really want to work together. But my main goal, I told them I really need to focus. I really want to integrate properly. So I really want to learn the language and take my courses seriously. And I tutor as well. So I will tutor on the side while I do that. And then we can hopefully launch the business in the meantime as well.
And I don't know, I mean, it's none of my business, but do you have like a romantic partner, a partner, and are you leaving them behind, or how is that going? I'm allowed to ask you. I'm a Jewish mother. I'm allowed.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of people ask me that, and I wasn't planning on it, and I hadn't dated for a long time. And right before leaving, I had like a few months before leaving, I had met a Jewish man and fell deeply. But I was supposed to leave in October, so we had said our goodbyes like twice because I had a flight and then another flight, and they were both canceled. So we got like a few chances to say goodbye, but we ended things amicably because we know, it won't be able to.
You never know.
Exactly. For now, no. But
does your faith have anything to do with why you wanted to move to Israel at all, or it's more for political, cultural reasons?
So we grew up in a more traditional household. Like, we do all the holidays, we eat kosher, but we're not really religious. We go to the synagogue, but I don't keep Shabbat. And, like, religion is important for me, but I'm not a really religious person. But when I go to Israel, I just feel at home. Like, I don't know how to explain that. It's just, you feel like everyone understands you. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't, when you're with your family, it's just like you're always with your family. That's what it feels like. I always felt more comfortable there. I always felt at home. And I just don't feel that here. It's been years I haven't felt that. And people don't understand. It's really hard to explain to other people. But when I go to Israel, I'm at home. I'm at peace.
And that's what Jewish Canada sounds like for this episode of the CJN Daily, the first one of 2024. Now, the Israeli government's Nefesh B'Nefesh organization, which handles Aliyah from North America, says about 3,000 Canadians and Americans made Aliyah last year. There was a sharp drop because of October 7th, partly also because so many airlines have stopped flying to Israel, but the organization says interest in moving has more than doubled. Nefesh B'Nefesh announced that thousands of people from North America have asked for applications, and the reason they're giving is overwhelmingly because of Zionism, and only a few are moving because of anti-Semitism. That's our show for today. Thanks for listening to the CJN Daily.